Shakespeare's last comedies are often called romances, as if they're a separate genre. What is a romance? It's one of Shakespeare's late comedies. Pardon me if that sounds a little circular. Shakespeare's early readers don't actually ever call these romances. When you get the big 1623 collection of his plays, the first folio, Winter's Tale, The Tempest, they go right in with the comedies. They're marked as comedies. Are they different? We call them romances, yes, because they are somewhat different in his light style. First, you will notice that these romances tend heavily to be from the elderly fathers or the middle-aged or late middle-aged father's perspective. This is comedy from the dad's point of view. And that's a big change considering how much of the comic form that Shakespeare inherited is about the young lover's point of view with the father as the obstacle. This is now the story of the dad in the comedy. It's still formally a comedy that at least one young couple always gets hitched. But but we spend a lot more time with dad's point of view. And we can say that's about the fact the writer has aged. We can also say it's about the fact that a lot of his actors have aged. We should remember that Shakespeare writes for an acting company with a basically an ongoing cast, and that changes over time. People are added, people leave, but Shakespeare's most famous leading man, the person who used to play Romeo, the person who played Hamlet, the person who played Othello and Lear, by the time we get to A Winter's Tale, that person is, in his mid to late 40s. He's not a young swain anymore. So the cast of the King's Men themselves, Shakespeare's acting company at this point called the King's Men, is dominated by kind of middle-aged men with graying beards. So, they have young people too, but there's a kind of natural shift. There's another shift into romances could be called comedies. They could also more accurately be called tragicomedies, a new and extremely fashionable genre or subgenre that's going around this time, around the end of the first decade of the uh, the 17th century. So, Winter's Tale premieres around 1610, 1611. These are around the same time The Tempest does. These are very late in Shakespeare's career, and people talk about The Tempest as the last play, though we know Shakespeare continues to collaborate with his successor as the company's playwright, a man named John Fletcher. Um, these plays are basically in the Fletcher idiom. As I said in an earlier video about Measure for Measure, we tend to think of Shakespeare as either a natural genius who's untouched by fads, who's above all that, who does exactly what he wants to do because of his inner promptings, and ignoring what other people do, or as somebody who's actually setting the fashions. And there are moments in his career when he is setting the fashions. In 1598, he is number one on all the charts, baby, and he's the inside. He's the insider's playwright and the kind of mass audience playwright. Everybody loves him. By 1610, he is considered a little behind the times. And here in these tragic comedies, we see him doing the tragic comedy form that younger writers like John Fletcher and Francis Beaumont have made extremely successful and fashionable. This is Shakespeare doing somebody else's bit. He's making it his own. He's still extremely talented, but this is not the genre that he created. This is him working in a genre that younger writers are doing, a new idiom created by other people, and he's following the fashion here. Part of following that fashion includes what I would call the kind of mask break. The Shakespeare's Company was also part of the very popular, or not popular, the very elite and profitable form of the Jacobean court masque. This is the opposite of popular in that it's not about the people. It's not about a mass audience. Only kind of the VIPs at the king's court get to see these extremely expensive, basically dance-driven performance pieces that get done once, maybe twice or three times, with incredibly expensive sets and costumes. Shakespeare's actors often participated in these. You will see in plays like A Winter's Tale, you'll see we will stop and do a kind of dance break. We will do a mask, often in costumes. A costumed dance number will show up. It's like the court mask. We're going to take that elite style, and we're going to kind of digest or incorporate that into Shakespeare's more broadly based dramaturgy. So those three things together. It is the comedy from the point of view of the aging man, of the father of adult children. It is the especially the father of adult daughters. It is a tragic comedy. People die. It's not a pure comedy, and and you tend to have that kind of mask or dance break somewhere in there. Those together pretty much give you a sense of the so-called romance genre.